Amen. Inshallah, today we'll be giving a reflection, or I'll be giving a personal reflection on Salaat, one of the most, if the not most important action in Islam, the most important action in the human being's life, the most important action that has been prescribed by Allah Azza wa Jalla Himself. Through the course of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam's life, we see a movement, we see stages of spirituality starting to develop. And all of this was based around the Salah. All of this was based around the Salah that was performed by Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. And we could see this as our core of our tent, the core of our housing of our lives, the core of our spirituality, the core of our development in our awareness of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Salah is of the most important aspects of life, but the thing is that we have to remember, and this is, like I said again, I want to mention again, this is a reflection, like I'm speaking to myself. It's not like I'm speaking to you as a dars. This is just a reflection to myself. So, remembering these things is for me. This is just my reflection of internally what goes on within me sometimes. So, the importance of the Salah is detrimental, but it's also critical for myself and yourself to remember that this Salah has to be carried out into all aspects of life. This isn't something that just Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam did and left it inside the masjid. This was something that was internalized. This was something that was carried out. This was something that was implemented in the battles, in his dealings with his wives, in his dealings with community, in his dealings with his fellow Muslim brothers, in his dealings with the development of the hearts and the minds of the people. We see that Allah Azza wa Jal tells us numerous things in the Quran about Salah. How it keeps us away from indecencies, how it is something to be completely aware of, especially when the call of prayer is mentioned, especially on Friday, but all other days. We see that we take certain necessary steps, which we talked about actually last week, was with the reflection on wudu, but we take certain necessary steps to approach this interaction with our Lord. First, we have to be clean of filth. We have to be properly dressed. We have to be properly aware, spiritually, have an intention, have a defined purpose. We see that even at some points in certain states that we get in, we have to make ghusl. We have to make a complete purification. As I was listening to a sheikh, he said, don't not be aware that what you are asking Allah Azza wa Jal in these moments when you're doing these purifications before this step to Salah is that you are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify your heart. When you are doing these actions such as wudu, as we reflected upon last week, that this is also an awareness of your dhunub, an awareness of the mistakes that you have made, and you are trying to cleanse your body, and you're asking and pleading to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove these blemishes that you have put onto your soul, either intentionally or unintentionally. So, approaching Salah, there is this preparation, there is this prerequisite, as they would say in college, right? When you're going to try to get to a certain course, you have to have prerequisites before. You have to have certain things accomplished. So we see that we have this. We also have the adhan. We see that this is a unique thing, that this was something inspired to in our ummah as a vision. Something calling from the hearts of the human being. Different than any of the Christians or the Jews, the bell and the horn. where they thought of these ideas, if you know the history of the adhan. Then it came in this beautiful vision to a human being, confirmed. Something that was to awaken the people, something that was to call out to the people, something that was to bring humanity to this beautiful gathering through the remembrance of our Creator. To get us out of heedlessness, to bring us to attention, to align our hearts. Because the beautiful thing is, like, when we are in these settings, brothers, and if there's any sisters, that our hearts start to beat on one accord. This is a phenomenon, you can look this up. That when we get into a room long enough together, that our hearts start to beat on one single rhythm. If you take Uncle Alam's heart, take one of his cells and put it with Tahir Bai's heart, it will beat on the same accord. This is very interesting. This is phenomenal. They also have another phenomenon that happens when you put clocks, this kinetic energy, when you put regular wine clocks together in a room, that it will all start to go on the same accord as the biggest clock. It will all change to the time of the biggest clock. It will go on the same clicks. Do we not see how our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam had the greatest heart? And how everybody's heart connected to his, and he was the Imam. He was the leader of all of us. And may, inshallah, all our hearts be connected to Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So approaching this action, this salah, is something dynamic. We see that one of the first actions after we line up completely straight after the Iqamah is called the commencement to prayer, the commencement to this remembrance, the commitments to this awareness, the commitments to see worshiping Allah as if we see Him begins. This reminder, this getting out of ghafla that we get, this heedlessness that we get into sometimes in this world. We see that we have this beautiful takbir, Allahu Akbar. Allah is greater than everything. We see that we put our hands up, no matter whatever school of thought you follow. You see, in the initial one is the takbir, where you put your hands up. You put your hands up, and then some of the ulama of spirituality have said, beautiful thing, that at this moment, you're putting the whole world behind you. You're putting all the emotions, all thoughts, all these attachments that you have, and these general concerns, and you put them behind. And you remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every single moment of your life, in every single instant, in every single thought, He is the greatest. He is of the greatest goal. He is of the greatest in everything. He is greater than anything that you possibly can imagine, or anything that you possibly could attain in this life. That He is Allah Azza wa Jalla. Allahu Akbar. One of the beautiful things too that I heard some of the ulama say is that the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah, one scholar differs, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a few of them, but in general, many of the ulama have said that the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala itself signifies all the beautiful names and attributes of Allah, just in that saying. There is no root to this word. There's actually no root. That because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is uncreated. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no beginning. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no end. He has no middle. He has no... Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above all that. But when you're calling on Allah, when you're saying Allahu Akbar, you are collectively saying all His beautiful names and attributes, and you're calling them. So brothers, and like I said, for myself and for you, when you're saying Allahu Akbar, when you're saying Allah period, remember that. Remember that you are calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what you are calling on, the creator of the heavens and the earth, and what that really means. We see that we have a beautiful little supplication to the beginning. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Wajatu Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Also to the many other ones that are there's a few of them. I'm just going through a few in my head. I apologize for the pause. But basically signifying the glorification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One just that's in the Hanafi position, just signifying the glorification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa bihamdih. This is a beautiful and with His praise. Because it is only through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we know how to praise Him. Going into this praise. And then completely getting away from, there's anything with Allah azza wa jal. Also too, that we turn our face to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the heavens and the earth. And that we are Muslims who submit to this. This is, this is the prior, this is what they say is like softening the path, softening the way, bringing your soul back to a proper position of understanding where your direction and your focus is. And then we say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, right? That is something that we get into, especially before we recite Quran. This is well known. I think this is something that I have been reflecting upon. We have to be very aware that, especially in these times, that any group of, Muslims who have gone astray have always justified it, usually by the book of Allah azza wa jal, in some way. And this is because this is a delusional aspect. This delusion, this nafsi justification, this arrogance, this ignorance. That if we don't come to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after we have just done this, because this is what we do, we come back to the book of Allah azza wa jal, in the salah, look at it, the speech of Allah azza wa jal. That we can go astray if we don't seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all of our actions, if we don't correct our intentions, rectify our intentions, rectify where our position is, what we're looking at in this book, by saying, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Because shaitan went astray. We see this from his own arrogance, from his kibr, right? But also too, we have to remember that there is this wave in this world. Shaitan is real. Jinn are real. They have good and bad. There is this other dynamic, there is this other aspect to our lives. There is this other reality that is going on right with us now. Maybe some of the jinn came to Salaat. The angels dropped down here, inshallah, when the adhan was called. You have two on your shoulders, but this is the real reality. Also too, if you take a look at it, and we talked about in the reflection after Ramadan, seeing how many people came to the masjid, seeing how many people came, just that you haven't saw in a while. Look at the delusion from shaitan is gone. The big one, some of the ulama say that the little shaitan is still there, but it's not even as effective anymore. You saw this. You saw that your ibadah increased. Your little thoughts and notions that you had that were definitely not positive, or maybe even sometimes how you would get angry, or you would get into these situations of talking sometimes with people, and all of a sudden some sparks, or something pushes you, drives you, just in the talking, or anything of these things. Maybe little addictions that you may have, and it doesn't have to be to drugs or anything, just to little foods and things of that nature, or things that overwhelm you maybe. They weren't there. They weren't there. What's easier? Do you not see how this has affected our lives, brothers and sisters? A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. You see this. You saw people inside the masjid that were there all year round. It was taken away. They were aware, awake. This is the prayer. To become aware and awake and attention. Look what we are doing in the prayer, first prayer after takbir. We are standing too, with all our limbs in proper positions. One of the things too is when you stand, just on a medical position, your heart pumps even harder. Look at the gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. We see that we go into this Quran, right? We go into the Quran. And we talked about in the reflection in Ramadan, just general reflections on Al-Fatiha. Just general reflections on this beautiful part of the Quran, this beautiful part of the Quran, this beautiful, concise summary of the Quran. How we say, in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. We reflected upon Lord. Just reflect upon these ayats. I don't need to go into depth on these, because this is something that we should go into depth every single day. at some level. One of the ways that we understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just going from Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and I know not everybody recites that out loud or in the beginning, but this is something that we say internally, even as you still say it internally. The way that we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by His names. And one of the scholars has said a beautiful thing. He says that in this whole world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written you letters. Actual personal letters for you to open up and read. This whole world is a reflection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your whole life experience, how you deal with each other, how you deal with your families, how you deal at your job. All this is a way for you to experience your Lord. And if you're conscious of it, it becomes experience with your Lord. And if you're not conscious of it, it doesn't become an experience with your Lord. It becomes maybe even a trial. But in everything that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, it was an experience with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In everything, even if it was him being stoned by the people of Taif, it was an experience with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We see this. We see from his actions. We see from his state sensation. Yes, he was present with people, but he was always present in all of his movements with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything started with Bismillah with him. Everything. Everything was about in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything was for Allah as a wajal. And we see from those that intention, we see from that course of action, even with his Sahaba, how much of lights for humanity they were. How much nur they spread into the world. How much reformation and change and elevation they brought to humanity. And these people were people who couldn't write or read. And what they did with economic systems, spirituality, just general knowledge, medical institutions, all these things have developed because of this beautiful heart. You could see how their care for humanity reflected in the things that they established. When Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu established all the masjids, were the first part of the community that he would establish. The teaching of the Quran. Making sure that everybody was financially sound so their minds would be at peace. Take a look at this. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Did they not reflect this in their actions because of the Salaat? Did they not reflect this in their actions? Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Did they not take this and reflect upon their Lord and do the best that they could with it? Malik Yawm Ad-Din. I mean, do we not reflect in our prayer? See the essence of the inner dimension of our prayer. Do we not understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has complete control of our affairs? He allows us to do certain things, like Ali said, and a person asked him about Qadr. He said, stand up on one foot. He said, you want to explain? Stand up on one foot. So the man stood up on one foot. He said, well then stand up on your other, take your other foot up and stand up. He said, I can't do this, I'll fall down. He said, that's how Qadr is. He said, certain things you have a choice, and certain things you don't have a choice. This is how our world is. But Maliki Yawm Ad-Din. Also too, one of the beautiful things about Deen is it comes from a root word that also means a debt that is owed. A debt that is owed. Do we not feel that sometimes, brothers? We should not feel that all the time, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have a debt that we owe Allah azza wa jal. That look, we are actually living human beings. We are actually living beings, period. We can feel, we can touch, we can sense, we can experience spirituality. We can come together as groups and have these beautiful cookouts and all these things like we did last week at Macau Park in Bethel. It was beautiful. I saw the older brothers still trying to remember their cricket days and all this. Alhamdulillah. But this is something beautiful. It was like a little glimpse of Jannah. We all come together under one accord, isn't this? Look at what we can experience. That's just one little part. And then we have, inshallah, the realm of infinity. The realm of infinity. This is something to reflect upon. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Thee alone do we worship, thee alone do we seek you for help. Or we get this assistance from. This is our world. This is how everything comes into this world, is because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a reflection in our salah. And then we ask for guidance. Guide us on the straight path. The path of who knows that fear, not of those that deserve thy anger or went astray. That's the English translation. I'm just trying to speed up because of time. But this heart of the Quran, this beautiful, they say that Yasin is the heart, and that actually Al-Fatiha is like this mother, this beautiful, it's subhanAllah. It describes so many things, so many, if you see how many tafsirs are just on Al-Fatiha, how much it explains, how much it brings to your life. But this is part of our salah. This is the main. If you don't recite this, most of the ulama say, if you don't recite this, your salah is not even valid. Because it needs it. Look at this. Look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it needs it. It was open, it came from a special door in heaven for us. A special door. When Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, a certain door in heaven was opened up that was never opened up before. It came for us, this ummah. SubhanAllah. So then we see after we get into this beautiful, and please go and research the tafsir on these things, on the spiritual depthness of the Fatiha. Just please go and research the history on it, and it's beautiful. And then we see that after we call ourselves to this beautiful summary of the Quran, we pick out a particular part of the Quran to focus on. A particular part is focused on. A particular part is remembered, wanted to be implemented, wanted to be internalized at some level with ourselves. We see that we also, sometimes when we're lazy, we have a tendency to just recite short surahs. But it's very interesting though, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts some of the most dynamic and most concise and beautiful wisdom in the short surahs for us. Catering to our nafs, catering to elevate us. This is subhanAllah. This is something to really reflect upon the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that some of the shorter surahs were actually the ones that were revealed to the Sahaba first. Many of them. Because this was a development of their iman. It reflects upon, you see the short surahs reflect upon akhirah, parts of aqidah. Remember when certain people went wrong. Also too, many things of just nafs, not being vocal, not backbiting. All these things of honoring the human being. All these things of getting away from the delusion of shaitan. This thing that we said in the beginning. It's very something to think about. But we reflect upon this. We reflect upon it in this moment. It's something to really profoundly think about. That we take, and we're supposed to, what we do as brothers for the inner dimensions, what we should do is take things that you can recite, that you understand, and draw a connection with them. And when you draw a connection with them, implement these things. One of the practices of the companions was that they wouldn't move on from Quranic verses until they understood what it meant completely, and also that they internalized and actually acted upon it. This is a methodology that we should remember. Sometimes we recite much and we don't really implement. Also, in all this state of this salat that we're doing, we have khushu, right? We have this humbleness, but then we have this submissiveness of the limbs. Also, the one with khushu is the one who is attentive in his prayer. The one who, with this submissiveness, is aware though. Is aware with this whole interaction that he is having with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not with just the mind, but also with the heart and with the limbs, and everything is in complete submission with this khushu. We see that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam said that a servant is, that if a servant commits a sin, that it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if that servant gets up and does 2 rakats with khushu, with awareness and all these things, that he is forgiven and asks forgiveness. He's forgiven. Look at the acts, because you came out of that action with khushu, because you were aware, you were conscious, and what? You actively made a change within your heart. You actively made a change within your heart if you really did that khushu. You made a step away from this. This is our prayer, making a step away from whatever. So when you bring that baggage to that moment, leave it behind. Allahu Akbar. When you go into the Quran, pick something out of it, internalize it. Be very aware, especially Imam Ghazali says, radiyallahu anhu, he says when you say, Ihdina siratal mustaqim, this is of the most importance to be aware at that moment. But you are truly asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, be aware for everything, but try your hardest to be very aware of that, because you're asking and you're calling on Allah Azza wa Jal to be guided. So, going through this, we go through the summary of the Quran. We go through a part of the Quran we pick out, and many times it's a certain theme or there's a certain message that Allah Azza wa Jal wants to get to us. And we take these bits and these pieces of this Quran and we internalize it, and it becomes something phenomenal. Then we see that we takbir again, Allahu Akbar, after we go through this motion in our heart, and we go down into ruku. One of the things that you see is that in this world we have different powers. I'm going to say that's the word that I want to use, powers. We have different governments, we have different kingships, we have different kingdoms, as they would say. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only king. He is the King of Kings. We see that we are doing this bowing, and one of the things that we should actively do within our hearts is that we are submitting to this lordship, to this kingship, to this divine power. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Adim, one of the names that we actually use to glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our salah. That He is the one that has this expansiveness, this grandeur, this beautiful power and might and esteem and dignity and honor in everything that we do, in any part of the commands or the prohibitions or any of the recommended things that we implement in our lives, brothers. It is for us to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is for us to have, like I said, a relationship or a beautiful relationship with our Lord. It is something profound. When we see, look at us today, look at everybody today came to Salaat, right? And give one example. And we all stood behind the Imam, we all came together in unity and solidified under the belief of La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. And everybody came prepared and dressed. Isn't this just beautiful itself? Isn't it beautiful how we can go anywhere in the world? Look at the miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can go anywhere in the world and we are reciting the same Quran. They all are doing the same thing as us. Everybody is doing this. You can go to Bangladesh, you can go to Pakistan, you can go to Egypt, you can go down to South America. Muslims were doing the same thing, Fajr, all over. Isn't this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showing you how He is Al-Adim? He is expansive beyond anything in your mind can imagine, but He's showing you there how His word can expand just everywhere. How His effect, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can send a messenger and He can affect people through centuries. This is something to be aware in Salah. How is He? How has my relationship been with Allah Azza wa Jal? How did I understand this name today? How did I put this name into practice? By being benevolent to people, by being merciful to people, by being justful to the people that are around me. How did I do this with Al-Adim? Then we go back up when we say what? What do we go up at? What do we say after we say after we go into ruku? Sami Allahu liman hamidah, right? Allah has heard all who has praised Him. Rabbana lakal hamd. Our Lord praises to you. Do we not feel in these certain moments, because take the movements in prayer as different positions that you are in life and different moments that you are in life. Are we not aware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has heard the inner callings of our heart, the stresses that we have, the moments where we feel frustrated, the moments where we think things are bleak? Has not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed us in the Quran that He has heard us? Did he not hear the woman who cried out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about her situation, and he responded to her? Did he not hear what Umar radiallahu anh said and confirmed some of these things? Did he not hear the desperations of the Ummah when they were going through these trials and tribulations? And he responded with victory. Or he responded with the state of their iman, that they wouldn't give it up for anything. These were all gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Has he not heard? Do you not think that he has not heard your situation? Has he not given you remedies? Has he not given you outlets? Has he not given you certain paths to take to rectify those situations? He has. Many of them, you'll see though, this is a very interesting thing, that they become collective efforts. They have to be, the problems that we face, especially now today as Muslims, have to become collective efforts. Have to become collective efforts. But this is something of beauty. We see that our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam was given many things, but he had to bring counsel to the people. He had to come with people. He had followers. This is a very interesting thing to think about. But getting back to the point, he has heard the cries of this ummah. He has heard the cries of you individually. Also, he has heard the praise that you have given him, and he will reward that in this world and the hereafter. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because you should never lose hope, because everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does is good. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has heard those who have praised him. We see that in our tradition of Islam, that even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heard the man who killed 99 people with his intention. His intention to change, his intention to rectify himself, his intention to make that move to a different state of mind, to a different state of heart. Did he not hear that by honoring him? Did he not hear that when the angels came down to judge between? We all know this story. That he was one step closer to the place that he was trying to go. So that gave him access to Jannah. SubhanAllah. Do you not think that he has heard what you did today here at Fajr? Then we go into a stage of movement, or a stage of life, as I like to say, because I think that for me personally, that the Salaat is just different stages of life. It's a reflection of different stages of life for me. That we're going into the closest one. That we are going into the movement that brings us closest to our Lord, is sujood. The one that you completely submit. You completely understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Most High. That all your faculties and reasonings are nothing without submitting completely, consciously, awarely, with awareness, with submission and love to Allah Azza wa Jal, that nothing, your life is nothing without that. That it is nothing without submitting to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you will never fulfill your full potential without submitting to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you have been created for something spectacular. Something that can't be even said in words. But it won't be fulfilled unless you submit to Allah Azza wa Jal. And we see that we come up from the first sujood, or the first prostration, for a brief moment. Sometimes we say Allahumma gfirli, and different sayings, but we have these pauses, these moments. We have different moments in our lives, brothers. Different reflections of Allah Azza wa Jal. Understanding that we need Him to provide for us. We need for Him to give for us. If He doesn't provide for us, or He doesn't give us these things, we have nothing. If He doesn't forgive us and have this protection around us, we are completely vulnerable to anything. If He doesn't give us this healing and this contentment in our hearts, we will go crazy. We won't be sound. We won't be safe if we don't have this. Do we not see that we have, and look at, we have two prostrations. This is something to think about. Many times in this life, we have two different aspects of life. We have the internal and external. This life, the hereafter. Past and present. past and future. We have all these different two elements of life, male and female. These two different aspects of life. But in no matter what situation, what part of life we're seeing, we have to be in submission to Allah Azza wa Jal. We are going to be in submission in this life, either consciously or unconsciously. At some level, you'll be in submission. You'll have certain things that you, like I said before, that you have choices on, but you have to drink water. You have to eat. You have to sleep. You have to do certain things to, certain means that you have to take to survive. You have to do these things. This is something that nobody has a choice on. Like, nobody can say, hey, you know what, I just don't want to drink water anymore. I'm okay. I don't really like it anyways. I like soda better, or, I don't really want to drink liquids. You have to do these things. There's certain things that in the command of Allah Azza wa Jal that you have to do. You'll be doing it consciously, where we're actually doing it consciously. When we drink, before we drink, we're saying Bismillah, these type of things. We're doing these things. This is all reflections of Salat. You can see that. And we're submitting consciously or unconsciously. You're submitting at some level in this life, but in the hereafter you will be completely submitting, and everything will be aware. There will be no test anymore. That's it. The whole situation is unveiled, and now it's time to answer for the actions that you put here in the realm of reality, on the plane of reality, as they say. What you put in this world. Because anybody knows, anybody with any intellect at all knows that what you have, even non-Muslims say these things. What you does has an effect on somebody. What you do has an effect on somebody. If I take this phone that's over here and I throw it at somebody, it's going to have an effect. Either somebody's going to be mad that it's their phone, I hit somebody, but it has an effect. When I speak, it puts a vibration out into the world. It's like Hitler. Had an effect. These are things to think about. He spoke, he had an effect. Because even the scholars say that even dark hearts, evil has an effect. It has an effect on people. Persuasion. That's what I'm trying to get. Have an effect. You can look at the tyrants through the course of the world, and you can look through the good people. They had an effect. Everything that you do has an effect. So we have these beautiful prostrations. And in any moment, in any situation in your life, when you are fully submitted to Allah Azza wa Jal, you will find comfort. And I don't just mean that you're doing it externally, but internally. Because we see this with the prophets, we see this with the righteous, we see this with the friends of Allah Azza wa Jal, that their lives became very different. That one of the things that they say about when a person has taqwa and he institutes truth into his life, that he or she, dangerous things become very easy to take on. Because they're very aware that they're in front of the Lord. They're very aware of their salat. Their salat became real. Their salat was taken out into life. Because when we are in salah, we're very aware of Allah. We're doing everything to be aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All the motions that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam gave us and left us here for guidance was the same way that we need to be out of that salah. To remember these things. Also, we have the tashahhud. As we go through all these motions, we have the tashahhud, and we see that in all reality of life, we are servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rabb, He is our Lord, He is the controller, He is the sustainer, the cherisher, the completer, the nourisher. He's all those things that are within that word. And we are nothing. Do we not see that when we are sitting in that beautiful position? Are we not dedicating our whole lives? Do we not see these things? There's different narrations. There's different ways that this was said. that all the good is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That our salah, look at it, salawatu wa tayyibat. All these things are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our life, our complete life, that everything is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we will go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do we not see this? Do we not also salam our Prophet as if he is right there with us? We don't say assalamu alayhi. We don't. Assalamu alayka, ayyuhan nabi. Do we not say that? Is he not with us? I don't mean in the physical level. I mean, is he not with us within our hearts? Is he not with us within our actions? Is the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam not within us? Should it be? This is something to think about. And that we salute our Prophet, that we salam our Prophet. This is the biggest salam that you will give. Every time we do the salat, this is the biggest one that you will give. This will be the biggest assalamu alaikum in your life. Then we wish mercy and blessings upon him. And then we also do salams towards who? Towards who? All the righteous servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do we not want to be in that category? Does that not show us that we should have a concern for all the people around us? That we should not have a concern for the collective efforts of the righteous? That we should not have a concern for where our hearts are going? That we should not have a concern for the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Do we not have a connection to this? Does this not mean... Don't we see, I mean, for me personally, and this is just, like I said, another personal reflection, and inshallah I will be concluding soon. For me, one of the things that I see with the ulama is this, it's a beautiful thing, is that for any righteous scholar and any righteous people and any of the stories that we have seen in the course of our history, since the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was here and also passed away, do we not see all of these people are a reflection of him? That all these beautiful people who ever stood up for righteousness, whoever stood up for, that were Muslim, that ever stood up for justice and truth, that they were all not a reflection of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at one piece or another. I don't care if it doesn't matter what culture they were from, doesn't matter, when they stood up for truth and they were on the hawk, they were on the truth, they were on the reality, and they stood up for it, and they implemented it, and they guided people. And they helped out people with their situations, whatever they may have been. Like I said, economically, spiritually, whatever. Even on a government level. Did they not reflect our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Did they not? When, after he passed away, like when Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu stood up to these situations, stood up to the hypocrisy that was going on, stood up to the people that were trying to rebel against this thing that was instituted and go back to the certain ways that they wanted, did he not reflect Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at some level? Did he not institute the same things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Did he not look in and deep and dig into things? Did he not, even when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said a certain narration about that he would fight certain people they say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and they paid the zakat. And Umar radiallahu anhu wanted to not institute that at that time. He took the stance and said, no, this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and I will take it out, or I will carry it out, even if I'm by myself. SubhanAllah. And Umar said at that moment, my heart inclined, and I knew this was true. He saw something else. But look at the stance. Look at the dua. Please go and research the dua that he made before he died. The dua that Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu made for this ummah before he died. Look it up. That he made when he counseled, when he talked to Uthman ibn Affan, when he talked to these people about Umar. And they all said that we know nobody else that loves this ummah, that has the concern for this ummah that Umar has. And then he talks and he said words that we don't know exactly what he said. But I was thinking of this the other day, and this is a reflection for the part of the righteous servants in the Salah. That imagine whatever was said, imagine the reflection that Umar and him had at that moment. Imagine what they went through. How this Islam came into their lives and made them the top of the top. They didn't see themselves, but how this dynamically changed the whole world around them that they saw, the things that they knew, the things that they believed were right and wrong, the people that they became, the things that they were concerned about, the experiences that they went through in the battles, and the experiences when Umar radiallahu anh saw Abu Bakr Siddiq giving all his wealth completely to this whole matter. Imagine what the council, imagine what the interaction must have been like. Imagine the brotherhood that they had. Imagine the people that they were. And then Abu Bakr Siddiq calls on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and tells him, and I'm just giving a brief summary of it, in the beautiful words. Ya Allah, I've taken every course and action basically that he possibly could have to come to a conclusion, to come to a decision. And I picked what I believe to be the best of your servants. And basically he said, the forelock is in your hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I've done the best that I possibly could. The best that I thought that would care for your ummah completely. And Allah, keep the ruler in your hand. SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. This is a man that cared about us. Did not reflect Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Don't think that he wasn't ever thinking about that Abu Bakr Siddiq and them people weren't ever thinking about you. They were. Do we not see it in him? Do we not see it in another narration where he said that he had such a love for the ummah that he felt that he would take on the burden of hell, and that if I could expand to the whole depths of it so nobody could enter it. These are people who loved us. These are people who love Allah and His Messenger. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So peace be upon them in this world and hereafter. This is something to think about, though. Who these people were, who we are, who the capability that we have, because we have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that we wish peace upon these people and the reflections that these people gave. Even like Uthman ibn Danfodio, which is an African brother. Please do research on him. These are people who reflected the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These are people who were righteous servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a man that took 30 years out of his life to try to reform the ummah, and didn't. This is a man who thought with wisdom at looking at situations. This was a man that cultivated the hearts and the minds of the people out of a state that they were in to black magic and putting it into Islam. This is a man that has left a methodology that reflects Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. This is a man that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam came and visited in his dream. And there's a beautiful thing they say on the day when they made the final decision that we are going to completely submit to Islam. They say that the night before that actually, and that Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, he met him in a dream. And that Rasulullah put the cloak, his green cloak around him that said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and put his turban on his head, and that Yusuf alayhi salam came in the dream and gave him the beauty on his face. And they said that with that day when he gave the speech, they said they never saw a man give a speech like that. This is the state of the heart. This is also him having a sincere wish and want to have peace for the righteous servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the two things, last things that we conclude on is this reality. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Or there's different ways that you say that, but the general thing is that in that point we are completely aware of our submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have gone through these motions. We know that we are destitute without Allah azza wa jal. Also, we are remembering this reality, and we are actually witnessing this. See, shahada is not just something that is like I declare or I bear testimony, because that's sometimes that you you'll see the translation, but you are witnessing at that moment. You are witnessing completely that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Muhammad is his messenger. Sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Completely. Internally and externally. And it's a beautiful thing that we point with this finger. And one of the things that we see with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, right? With this, it's a beautiful thing. That when he pointed to people, he always pointed to like this. But when he did, this was for Allah. Consciously aware in every moment. We would do this, and they say that when he would talk, he would turn to the whole person. He would be consciously aware of the moment and the experience with that person. He'd be completely devoted to that moment with that person. Even aware of when he does it, that he knows all the time consciously that this is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That this remembrance, that this witnessing, that this testification was for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he saved that finger. SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. The man is a complete miracle. Isn't our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam a complete miracle? In every movement, in every moment, he was a complete miracle. And then also, we understand the honoring that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam's name right under his. Do we not see how our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam is praised every single day? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, right after that. Do we not see how the things and the footsteps that he's left have been cherished and praised? We see that places that he walked, I don't know if anybody was there, but the brother Umar from Yale came down and gave a presentation. I don't know if they gave it here, but I think they gave it out there. Did he give it here too? Isn't it so interesting how every place that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam started to walk and pray is a place of masjid. How it's because of his presence there. It's because of the people's experience with him, the people's wanting to be closer to him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that has been left there. Why do we go and visit these places? The Kaaba and all. It's because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam is there. It's because Allah has commanded us. I'm not saying that he hasn't. But look, he wants us to go through those motions that our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam went through. And through many of the other prophets that went there. Look at that. Look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, subhanAllah, our Lord is great. Allahu Akbar, seriously. Our Lord is great. Look at that. Look at how many people go to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam's masjid. Look at the expansiveness of it. Just one single man, is he not praised? How his principles and his methodologies of things reformed all parts of the world. How this thing that was inside of his heart got into the other people's hearts, unified, and became something that you could hear the adhan through most of the world. That you could hear people saying, I bear witness that there's no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, through being echoed through thousands and thousands and thousands of miles. That's all the way over here in America. That it's all the way, it's everywhere, it's all around the world. How many people are actually making salat? Allahu Alam, but how many people are praising the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. Kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim. Look at right in that. And the thing is that how much he left for us, how much was given to him by Allah Azza wa Jal for us to institute in our lives, for us to make a reformation and for a change, and to be consciously aware of our Lord, to be people who worship Allah as if they see Him. Worship Allah as if we see Him. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give that back. I'm sorry, I didn't get this time first. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give that back. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give the mercy and the blessings and everything to Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. we can't ever pay him back. If we gave our whole lives and all of our lives in this whole room, in all the world, we couldn't pay him back. So, brothers, and then we conclude the salah with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And we leave that moment. And one of the beautiful things that BMMasjid said is like, don't rush the salah. Don't try to leave the salah, because I can imagine what was in his heart. I can't imagine how he felt about prayer. But leaving that moment. And in our lives, brothers and sisters, we should leave moments, certain things behind. You come out of that salah, inshallah, try to come out of it, even when we get up to make the two, for the complete rising of the sun, and we sat here in ibadah, we sat here in remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. When you go into those 2 rakats, come out with a different person. Come out with a different awareness. Come out with a different understanding. Come out putting those prior ugly things that you had aside. The arrogance, the kibr, all those things, the new of anything that you were doing, put it to a side. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, make this of some benefit. And may this reflection that I had, and just this little short reflection that I had, solidify in your hearts at some level. And may we actually be people who take this salah into our whole lives. And may this not just be some formal ritual acts. May this be something that is movements of our hearts and our minds and our bodies, completely. And may we be people that are ever present with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and ever present with the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam in our lives, and people who implement this and love this and die on this. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.